Welcome to the Hello Seattle podcast, a local perspective on living in and moving to Seattle.
Yeah, we're excited to introduce you to people, places, and communities that make living in our hometown special.
Hello, Seattle. I'm your host, Zach McDonald.
And I'm your co-host, Dan Keller, mortgage advisor at New American Funding. And we got a new season, new series.
Yeah, excited. We filmed our first season, and looking back, I think something that we wanted to bring in this season of the podcast is a lot of focus and value in specific areas. And over time, our hope is to do this in more places. But both of us currently live in Shoreline, Washington. So we figured we would start this season focusing in on Shoreline, all things Shoreline, the neighborhoods in Shoreline, and all the cool things about living here. So tell us, Dan, where Shoreline is for those that maybe are new to the area or don't live here yet.
Yeah, so the idea around season 2 being Hello Seattle Shoreline is going to teach you, one, where Shoreline is relative to Seattle and, you know, King County, Snohomish County, because it is actually, what do they call Shoreline? It borders Snohomish County. And you're going to get into this later, but I found this fascinating as we did our research. I never knew that the reason why they called it Shoreline was...
Well, it's because it was the school district. It was an unincorporated part of Seattle, and the school district was in between King County and Snohomish County, and from the Puget Sound to
the lake.
So they called it Shoreline. Shore to shore and line to line. And they just called it Shoreline, and that's how the city became
super
Shoreline.
Cool. Yeah, it's fascinating. That's one of the things I love too about even season 1 is as we went around talking about different communities and neighborhoods in Seattle, you get to learn. Obviously, we're talking real estate and I'm talking mortgage finance, what it takes to qualify financially and live there. But we learn a little about these communities. Now, this community, like you said, is very near and dear to our heart because we both live in the community. What's fascinating, the reason why we're going to dedicate a season to Shoreline is, I think you said there's 14 different communities within Shoreline, neighborhoods within Shoreline. So what you can expect from this episode or this series is a little bit more about where Shoreline is, what Shoreline is, and the different neighborhoods and how much you need to earn or what it takes to live in these communities. And then you'll understand some market stats throughout. But so Shoreline, where is it located? You kind of just talked about it borders Snohomish County and it's in between Lake Washington and the Puget Sound. I always tell people when people are like, hey, where do you live, Dan? My wife and I actually live on Richmond Beach. So it's a part of Shoreline, and it's the most westerly part of Shoreline.
Literally on the shoreline.
Literally on the shore. And so I always tell people we're about 5 to 6 miles north of downtown Seattle. So fair enough. And then we're also, if you really want to get technical, we're on the border of Snohomish County and King County.
Yeah, you're really close. I live in Hillwood neighborhood, which is just up the hill from Richmond Beach. It's all the normal people. I'm just kidding. We're also in a very similar geography, just maybe a mile up the hill. And with Shoreline, you have great access on the west side. So Shoreline's bisected by the highway, I-5, and also Highway 99. So you've got, a couple different highways. So you've got the east side, the west side of Highway 99, and that's where we're living. And then you've got kind of this middle section in between Highway 99 and I-5. And then you've got the east part of Shoreline over on the other side of I-5. And so we're going to talk about some of those different neighborhoods and highlight them today. We're not going to be able to go into all that. The goal is just to give you kind of an understanding of Shoreline as a whole. And, thinking about how Shoreline started, these are things we had some knowledge of. I knew Shoreline was incorporated in 1995. Until then, it was all unincorporated King County, but it was fun to look back and think through some of the other things that we've noticed over time. And I think most of this area was originally logging. So Shoreline was one of those same places. One of our favorite parks is Richmond Beach. It's really close to your house. I go down there a lot as well. with my family, or even just to go walk on those stairs. So there's a nice place to work out down there.
Saltwater Park is a huge attraction, especially this time of the year. You're going to have cars. Obviously, there's 2 parking lots down there. You can barbecue. There's cabanas. The beach down there is absolutely incredible. But we'll see cars parked all the way up the road into the neighborhoods because of Saltwater Park being such a great attraction.
That was originally a place they'd bring the logs in, right?
You can actually see the original dock.
That's how it started. So that park has been changed and transformed, but that was kind of part of the early history of Shoreline and really this whole area, the logging industry. But then you had the railroad coming up, and now those are all those are all like different paths. So you have people biking and walking on what used to be the railroad paths. You have the interurban trail and also the Burke-Gilman Trail, which is over on the east side. And those used to be railways, but that brought more people to Shoreline. But still, it was more of like a vacation place or a place for work until World War II.
Okay.
And then you started seeing a lot more development. So a lot of the houses in Shoreline they're older, but they're not really old. So you go to Seattle and you have the older house. You have the early 1900s houses. In Shoreline, you have a lot more 1940s block style houses. Those would have been right after World War II. You also have a lot of the mid-century modern houses, but the majority of Shoreline was constructed in that realm, 1940 to 1980. And then you have some newer development, but a lot of that's now urban infill from what's being added at this point. But there's been a lot of changes here over the last few years with the light rail. What have you noticed has changed?
Well, Shoreline, I'll talk from a business standpoint as a mortgage professional, seeing a lot of people relocating to the Pacific Northwest. They're leveraging the light rail system to be able to live in more affordable communities versus downtown Seattle, or in some of the closer to Seattle, downtown Seattle suburbs that are pricey, Ballard, Wallingford, Green Lake, those types of areas, Capitol Hill, South Lake Union. So selfishly love it. I think it's going to be a convenient way, or it is a very convenient way to jump on and run downtown. My kids have already used it. And they love it.
Have you used the light rail?
I haven't used it yet.
You haven't used the light rail yet?
I haven't.
Come on, Dan.
No.
Oh, man. Too cool for school.
I think I've used
here.
Uber once, and then Jenny and I just drive.
You just like to drive.
We're going to need
But you're from Snohomish County up north, so you didn't do public transport. Everything was driving, right? So it's just kind of what you're used to.
Drive or Uber. Yeah. But I think it's incredible. It's going to be great for, over the last couple of years. It was a great idea when a lot of the tech companies allowed work from remote. Now they're kind of going back to wanting people to be in the office, but it's going to be great. They're already pushing it through Mount Lake Terrace all the way into Linwood and even further north. So, but it's great. It's going to bring more people to the Shoreline community. The other thing too is we've seen this in other communities, especially further north, where when you bring the opportunity for well-qualified homeowners to purchase and live in communities, it raises the standard in some of these communities too. It ups the standard. There's some areas in Shoreline that I've seen over the last 3 or 4 years completely get renovated. Well, you bring in people that buy homes that have money, and they start renovating the houses and they make them newer. And so we're starting to see a lot of that.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that I've noticed since the light rail kind of started coming up is there's been a lot of rezoning and a lot of different types of development. So in the past, Shoreline had mainly single family houses, and there were some businesses and such, especially along Highway 99. But what I've seen a lot of is a lot of the businesses and the buildings along Highway 99 are starting to get either torn down and rebuilt or renovated, like you were talking about. Yeah. I think a lot of the main roads kind of along 175th and 185th, 145th, there's a lot of spots maybe overflowing from there, but because the zoning's changed, there's different types of housing being built, more walkability in the recent years, and that's all tied to the light rail. The rest of the neighborhoods have mainly been preserved in their original conditions or the way they were before. But near the light rail, you're kind of seeing more of this urban hub forming. And it's not just in Shoreline, it's also happening in Linwood as well. And so those would be big changes. We're going to talk a lot more as we talk about different communities or neighborhoods within Shoreline. We'll talk a lot more about zoning and what we're seeing in those areas that are actually near the light rail, because some of these new zoning changes for investors is absolutely a home run. And then, I'm going to
I'm putting together information right now because of the new tax bill that's been passed, the big, beautiful bill. Hey, it's really real estate investor friendly. And so we'll come back in the next few weeks, kind of tie in some zoning and some of the neighborhoods, along with some of the new tax laws that are going to go into effect. It's going to elevate what's already happening in some of these neighborhoods.
Yeah, no, I hear that. So real quick, why do people live in Shoreline? What do you love living about? What do you love about living in Shoreline, and what do other people love about living in Shoreline?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what brought us to Shoreline was schools. Mm-hmm. We were from up north, Lake Stevens community, born and raised up there, raised our family, and then my daughter was a pretty good volleyball player, and son was a little baseball player, and so sports brought us south all the time. And then I was managing a mortgage company, New American Funding, where I'm at now in the Kirkland area. And so my commute was an hour and 20 every day to and from. And then on the weekends, our kids at 10, 11, and 12 were playing select volleyball and baseball down. Everything was south.
Yeah, that's where more people are.
Yeah. Well, Allie made a select volleyball team and had an incredible coach. And it was one of the premier volleyball teams in the Pacific Northwest. And he happened to be the head high school volleyball coach at King's Schools.
Yep.
So we actually relocated to Shoreline for King's Schools.
To King's Schools.
Yeah, because it was closer. And then, we fell in love with the area. And
that's in my neighborhood. That's in Hillwood.
Right.
King's
you're walking distance.
Yeah, we can walk.
Like 2 blocks, right?
Yeah, and that's where my kids go to school too.
Yeah.
That's
so
wild.
Schools are great. I think.
But we're talking about a private school, right?
Yeah.
But I went to that. I went to King's as a kid, which is partly like why our kids are going to King's. But the public schools are amazing in Shoreline.
Shoreline.
One of the best school districts in the state. Mm-hmm. And especially the schools that are right by our house all have really, really high ratings. If you're looking at, niche.com or great schools and you're looking at those different metrics. Yep. I think maybe our side of the freeway schools don't do it have as high of the diversity scores as the other side of the freeway. Mm-hmm. But overall, the schools, as far as academics go, are they're amazing public schools. You can't go wrong with that either. So
the location, the proximity of Shoreline, near I-5, near 99, near 405. So we live in Richmond Beach. Mm-hmm. I spend 3 days a week at our Kirkland New American Funding office, and sitting on I-5 to get to 405 in the morning is pathetic. Well, I go right down around the lake. I am from Richmond Beach to Kirkland, Juanita, Kirkland, and every single day, no matter what, 30 minutes or less.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But you can also get to Seattle on the back roads in 30 minutes.
There you go. Yeah. We go to a Mariner game at night and there's rush hour. We'll go around down through Ballard and around and at 99. Yeah. Go under Seattle. And we're at the stadium.
So great. I went down to Queen Anne at 6 o'clock on a Friday night a couple weeks ago, and it was 35-minute drive.
Yeah.
And it said it was going to be an hour and 15 minutes to take I-5. And I just got to drive the back roads all the way there.
Yeah.
But just jumping back to schools really quick, A is the rating they have on niche.com.
Cool. I love that. Yeah. I think proximity is really, really big. Schools are really, really big. I think parks, and then it's just a cool community, right? Yeah. I think that you've got now. Full disclosure, we live in Richmond Beach. We spend a lot of time in Edmonds, downtown Edmonds. It's 2-3 miles away, right?
I think that's a huge benefit of the west side of Shoreline, right? Yep. You're super close to Edmonds. And so from my experience, Shoreline doesn't have as much of the restaurant scene or hometown kind of feel. Yeah. It does feel more like a bedroom community, for a lack of a better word. It's super close and convenient to Seattle. Yep. But you don't have some of the things that you would have maybe in Edmonds, right? Which Edmonds is pretty special as well. We both lived in Edmonds as well
before,
and so I love Edmonds too. But that's Snohomish County, right? That's on the other side of the county line.
And don't discount this too. Another reason, and this is a great one of the benefits of this podcast too, and us living here is we can actually tell you don't live here necessarily yet. Some of the benefits that we've received from living here. We're 15-20 minutes from downtown Ballard. And so you get the farmers markets downtown Ballard. Ballard's restaurant and pub scene is just awesome. Brewery scene is just awesome. So I love that. A few minutes from downtown Edmonds, a few minutes from downtown Ballard, only a couple minutes from I-5 and 99 is pretty cool.
Yeah, great access, especially to the west side. I think getting over to the east side's pretty easy too, because you're only an exit away from 405, or you can get over on one of the bridges on 520 or I-90. So it's just always felt like a really great location to be as far as commuting goes too. So I think, we'll talk more and more about some of these things. I think we could spend an entire episode talking about the different parks in Shoreline, or the different schools and the different, different zones and the different neighborhoods. And we will. We're going to do that and really dive into living in Shoreline, Washington a little bit more. But as we wrap this episode up, we just want to give you a little flavor for what it looks like to live here as far as the cost of living, because when you're thinking about living somewhere, I think that's a really big consideration. Yes, what amenities are there, what schools, what parks, what's the access look like? But in reality, you also have to be able to afford to live there, or to know what it looks like to live there. So I think, talking really quickly, I think we'll talk about renting first here. So these are, apartments.com is suggesting, and this is, I would say, accurate just from my experience. You're in that for a 1-bedroom apartment, you're looking somewhere around $1,800 to $2,000 a month for I would say probably a nicer apartment. 2 bedrooms, you're in that $2,300 to $2,500 range. There's not a lot of 3-bedroom apartments, but there are some, and you're going to be way up into that closer to $3,000 range. Okay. Renting a house is going to be even more than that. You're going to be in that $3,000 to $5,000 range, most likely. It's not cheap to live in Shoreline, but that is cheaper than a mortgage right now, with the higher mortgage rates. So overall, the biggest thing I've noticed, with the development in Shoreline is there's been a lot of apartments built along 99 recently and near the light rail. And so it's become a lot more convenient to have that, apartment, more that urban apartment, walk to the light rail, go downtown. I think it works better for the people that work downtown. You and I have to drive. It's harder to take the light rail. There's a light rail station walking distance to my office from 2 different light rail stations in Seattle, but I can't really take it because I need to be able to drive to meet clients over on the east side, or come back to Edmonds or Linwood, or go, drive up to Lake Stevens or Bellevue. It's not super convenient to take the light rail to get to these different places. But if I could, it would be great, right? Speaking of living, though, and what that looks like, the cost of living, if you want to buy something, goes up substantially. What are some of the numbers for, if somebody wants to get a mortgage, they want to buy a house, what's it going to look like for them as far as like what they need to make on a monthly basis, but also those monthly payments? So
you mentioned that the median home value in all of Shoreline. Okay. So
so this is across
the board. You said is what, 870, 880?
870 to 880 the last month, right?
Last month. Okay. So this is why we're doing this season 2, just dedicating it to Shoreline. Like Zach said, there's 14 different neighborhoods within Shoreline. Each neighborhood has different median or average home values, right? So, and then obviously based off the home values, it's going to determine or impact what it takes, what you need to earn to live in those communities. So let's just look at Shoreline as a whole. The median home value at $880. The average down payment in King County and Snohomish County for not just first-time homebuyers, just in general, is 7%.
Yeah.
So
not 20%.
Not 20%.
Right? That's important. Some people ask me, do I need 20% down to buy a house? Like, no. You can put a lot less down.
You could put a lot less. You could put a lot more. So let's just use 7% down. I mean, even if you just wanted to use round numbers for the sake of discussion and go 10%, 10% down plus closing costs, you're still less than $100,000 down. But 7% down, your total monthly payment with average property taxes, average PMI, and average insurance, total monthly payment is right around $5,900 a month.
So for the median house, your average payment is going to be about $5,900
with 7% down. Obviously, if you put less down, it'll be more. If you put more down, it'll be less. So just using averages. Now, for a $5,900 a month payment, assuming you got a little bit of residual monthly debt, like credit card debt or auto loans, I'm just using $500 a month in total household debt on top of your mortgage. You need to make about $14,000 a month total household income to live in Shoreline as a whole. Now, stay tuned for some of our next episodes. We're going to break down different neighborhoods, and you'll get a more accurate number on those communities.
Each neighborhood,
for each
right?
neighborhood.
Well, and each situation would be different. The other thing to talk about with the different neighborhoods, the average price in Shoreline is about $1,050,000. And so that's a lot different than the median. So when there's that big of a gap, there are certain communities that are going to be closer to that 800 to 900 range, but there's also going to be communities that are going to be well over that. They're going to be $1.2 million, $1.3 million to live in these different neighborhoods. And so Richmond Beach is going to be the most expensive aside from the Highlands.
You got the Highlands, you got the waterfront,
you got Enos Arden
water
as well,
view.
right? It's a lot of the coastal communities are going to be the most expensive in Shoreline.
Yeah, and we'll get into all of that. And I always say this on all of our podcasts. We're talking about Shoreline as a whole, but if you're listening to this right now or watching this on YouTube and you're like, hey, I'm interested in this community, just reach out to us. Happy to get you some custom information on your particular situation. But some of our next episodes, you're going to get a lot out of.
Yeah, and this is the beginning of doing this in other cities and other neighborhoods as well. We're going to focus on Shoreline first. We do a lot of work in all these other communities and help a lot of people in other neighborhoods, but this is close to home, right? So it makes sense for us to talk about it. What's our future look like here? We talked about it at the beginning. Where are we headed with this podcast?
So next episode, we decided this last week, we're just going to start with Richmond Beach. We're going to work down and work up, and we're going to do that strategically because a lot of the older homes, the first developments in Shoreline were actually down by the water. It was like you were saying, it was kind of a vacation town, a summer home type town first. So we're going to start next week, Richmond Beach, and we're going to work up.
We're going to work our way through Shoreline, starting in Richmond Beach, which is kind of fun. I think as we're moving forward through the rest of the podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe. So if you're not currently following one of us on YouTube, please do that. And if you want to follow along with this podcast, that would be a great way to do that. If you have questions or things that you want to hear us talk about in this podcast about Shoreline or any particular neighborhoods, we'd love to hear from you about that. And of course, if you're ever thinking about doing some type of buying or selling or making a move here to or from Shoreline, we'd love to be a resource for you.
Absolutely. Well, that's a wrap. This was great. I'm excited for Richmond Beach. I learn a lot as we do research for these podcasts. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, let us know.
Goodbye, Seattle.